Hello and welcome to the Leaders of the 21st Century event. I'm Periclean.
And I'm Lindsay Rosen, and we are both Communications Fellows. This event was created as an opportunity to celebrate some of Elon's most outstanding students whose academic records, personal characteristics, records of service and leadership, and commitments to excellence have set them apart as fellows and scholars. They have made the most of an Elon experience. Let's take a look at how the experience began.
So my fellows weekend was pretty interesting.
There's a whole interview process for the fellows program, but my year there was a terrible storm.
There was a humongous ice storm.
And there was a crazy scene.
And my flight got canceled.
I was able to make it to North Carolina for fellows weekend.
I hadn't toured Elon before, so that was my only Elon visit.
Ice frozen everywhere, off branches and limbs, huge icicles everywhere.
A tree actually fell on Belk Pavilion.
I was like, does someone know about this? Should I tell someone?
It just seemed like there's nothing really going to go right in this whole scenario.
I met the director of the honors program. He was with his family and they all had their sleeping bags and they were going to sleep in his office because his home didn't have power.
We had to do a supplementary essay.
And they canceled the Friday night reception. I went to a Rangers Canes game instead of the Teaching Fellows reception.
When I finally got to fellows weekend and I got to meet some of the professors, meet some of the students, it was worth it. All the ice and the cancellations and everything.
Now, please join us in welcoming President Connie Ledoux Book.
Thank you, Perry and Lindsay. On behalf of the trustees, the faculty, staff, and alumni of Elon University, I welcome members of the class of 2018, their parents, family, and friends, as well as guests. You certainly have come a long way together. And tomorrow morning, we'll conclude your time at Elon by celebrating with about 10,000 of your closest friends. Seniors, you have much to be proud of. You have tackled the rigorous demands of fellows and scholars programs, completing requirements for honors fellows, Lumen scholars, Periclean scholars, Elon teaching fellows, Elon college fellows, social science fellows, arts and humanities fellows, mathematical and natural science fellows, communications fellows, business fellows, and Isabella Cannon Leadership Fellows. More importantly, you have shown tremendous personal leadership in creating a rigorous and intellectual path for yourself at Elon. You have taken responsibility for advancing your learning, developed research agendas, completed capstone projects, and you've created new knowledge, been published in journals, presented your research at national and international conferences, and it served you well. The group before us today has earned prestigious national and international fellowships, landed exciting first jobs, and entrance into some of the finest graduate programs in our country. Wow, are we ever proud of you. And now you are soon to be alumni, and Elon is going to need you in the future. As you begin another exciting journey for yourself tomorrow, I ask that you always carry Elon University with you. I want it in your mind and in your heart, and Elon will need your good thinking as alumni. We'll need your volunteerism, we'll need you on boards and councils. You, as alumni, are our reputation out in the world. And so take very good care of that. As leaders in this next century, we want you leaders in your communities. We want you cheerleading Elon in all far corners of the world. And next year, we'll actually ask our alumni to help the university build its next strategic plan. So watch your Elon email, and we'll be asking for your feedback about where should Elon go as our current strategic plan comes to a close. But for now, we want you to take a moment this weekend And I want you to thank the extraordinary faculty and staff who have mentored you and challenged you, as well as supported you these last 4 years. Maintain the strong bonds that you developed at Elon. Make sure we know where you are and where you're headed. And lastly, this weekend, it's also a time to thank the parents, families, and friends who have supported you for the last decade, for your life, for your journey here, as well as your time at Elon. We know how much the commitment is of a family to attend Elon, and for your confidence in us families, we are extremely grateful. So thank you.
Now it is time, and our great pleasure, to introduce you to our classmates, fellows and scholars of the class of 2018. As the program on your seats indicate, this group is comprised of Lumen scholars, honors fellows, Elon College fellows, business fellows, communications fellows, teaching fellows, Periclean scholars, and Isabella Canon leadership fellows. We invite you to read about each one of these in your program. For now, we would like to highlight some of the impressive qualities of this graduating class of fellows and scholars.
These fellows and scholars entered Elon University 4 years ago with records already setting them apart as future leaders of the 21st century. Their academic profiles matched incoming classes at William & Mary, Boston College, and Davidson. Over the past 4 years, they have made the most of an Elon education. First and foremost, they've excelled in class. The majority of this group will graduate tomorrow with a 3.5 GPA or higher, earning them Latin honors of magna cum laude, summa cum laude, or cum laude. An impressive number of our classmates sitting here have also been inducted into the most prestigious honor societies, including Phi Beta Kappa and Phi Kappa Phi.
Representing almost every undergraduate major and minor, they have engaged the 5 Elon experiences: study abroad, internships, undergraduate research, service, and leadership at rates exceeding the campus average. They have engaged in study abroad in LA, New York, Peru, Brazil, Uganda, India, and China, and have completed internships in Paris and Spain. They have interned with national news and international financial companies, nonprofits, and tech startups, and have been student teaching in local classrooms. They have won every Elon-endowed scholarship that supports undergraduate research, delivered more than 200 presentations of their research, performed their creative work, and have a number of professionally peer-reviewed articles in print. They have completed untold hours of service, regionally, nationally, and internationally. They have held immense range of campus leadership roles, such as student government, honor societies, Elon volunteers, student media, the director of the campus kitchen, and the captain of the women's ultimate frisbee team, to name a few. We have NCAA Division I student athletes, orientation leaders, executive interns, and tutors, and we could go on.
And it's enough to make your head spin, but the good news is they haven't stopped there. As they graduate and move beyond Elon's bricks, this year's fellows and scholars will walk away with highly competitive and prestigious international opportunities. One student will serve in the Peace Corps in Morocco. Others will look ahead to positions with leading companies and service organizations across the nation and across the globe. Pursue graduate studies in the halls of leading research institutions such as Yale and Vanderbilt, or lead K-12 classrooms all over the country. May we ask now that this year's class of fellows and scholars stand and receive our recognition.
Fellows and scholars, as President Book suggested, let's extend a big thank you to our families and friends who have supported us through our long journeys to this day and who will continue to support us as we transition into the next set of adventures. It has been a wonderful adventure, and now we look forward to sharing some of that adventure with you. Let's take a look.
I'm painting some sculptures I made my freshman year. These are 2 out of 3 sculptures that were supposed to sort of talk about the stereotypes of African American women. This was like my first attempt at doing a sculpture, so I definitely learned some things because I love it. I took it my freshman year just for funsies, and it became one of my biggest passions.
Elon to me has meant opportunity. So positive experiences, not so fun experiences, opportunities to stretch myself beyond what I thought I was capable of, which I think Teaching Fellows has done that, Lumen has done that.
I think Elon College Fellows in the beginning wanted us to ask questions, and they wanted us to question everything we thought we knew. I remember Dr. Kirk saying the best thing you could do is change your major and change your entire life plan. And a lot of us found that to be very frustrating because we all thought we knew our life plans.
It keeps you going to know that there's people in the same boat as me. There's people who are just as dedicated as me.
Having that prize really further opened up my mind as to what research can look like and what you can do with it.
My research has allowed me to take my major and explore something further that I wouldn't have the opportunity to do at Elon without research. My research focuses on Al-Qaeda's finances and its implications for counterterrorism efforts.
I'm developing a facial recognition program to implement on different devices, specifically robotic devices.
My research specifically is looking at the African American experience on Broadway.
Investigating the effects of outdoor learning environments on students with autism.
Looking at whether or not dopamine and norepinephrine are changing the aggregation patterns of amyloid beta, which ultimately would impact the cell death that occurs in Alzheimer's disease.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Periclean.
And I'm Jackie Pascale. Right now I'm applying to a bunch of different places, and we realize how unique the Elon experience is, because so many other schools don't get to do what we do.
Opportunities to engage in things that I didn't think I was interested in.
I had really only been on the East Coast my entire life, so I never expected to do all of this kind of travel in college.
So I was able to actually visit Chapulikusu, Dubai and Abu Dhabi,
Copenhagen,
Amsterdam, Switzerland.
I was able to travel to Scotland twice.
I've been to Brazil,
Selma, Birmingham, Montgomery,
Chicago,
Nashville, New Orleans, Anaheim, California.
And to be able to be exposed to that as a freshman definitely helped give me confidence and increased awareness for the rest of my years.
I've been to national conferences, and I love Surf Day here at Elon because there's so many people that are primarily focused on undergraduate research. A lot of different types of clothing.
We are at Williams High School in Burlington, North Carolina, which is where I have my student teaching placements. Teaching Fellows is so much more than just the scholarship. Some of my very favorite Elon experiences have been as a result of Teaching Fellows.
We actually received $250,000 of Elon University's endowment to invest in, and so our day-to-day classes with Dr. Gupta pretty much include pitching stocks that we think would be good investments and then deciding as a class whether or not we should buy them. And now being able to actually invest using real money is such a cool way to end my college experience as a business fellow.
In a short video clip, it's hard to tell you everything about our work and experiences as fellows and scholars. So to give some more personal examples, we have a few of our classmates here to share some of their own research experiences during their time at Elon. And after this formal program, we invite you to come speak with all of the fellows and scholars here and further during the reception. One example of the amazing work our classmates have accomplished is from Anya Fredsel. Anya is an accomplished Elon College Fellow and a Lumen Prize winner. Anya will graduate with a major in religious studies and minors in women's gender and sexuality studies, as well as Asian studies. Anya is a certified yoga teacher and a lifelong practitioner and studied abroad in India and Cape Town, South Africa. She is awarded a Fulbright grant to continue that research in India. Please welcome Anya to the stage.
Good afternoon. What hobbies did you have before you were born? I participated in my first yoga class in utero. In the following years, I joined my mom for an array of classes, from postpartum and children's yoga to adult yoga, where we sweated in heated rooms and chanted mantras while seated on sheepskins. In 10th grade, I began my 200-hour yoga teacher training and was captivated by weekends of philosophy and anatomy and intrigued by the statue of the Hindu deity Nataraja that sat in our room between a painting of the Buddha and a poster depicting colorful chakra symbols. My career as a yoga teacher has included classes for community members at local studios, children in school programs, and peers through Elon Campus Recreation and Elon Yoga Club. At Elon, I also discovered yoga in the classroom in my first religious studies class, taught by my professor, who had become my mentor and role model. I took Hindu traditions with Dr. Amy Alako my very first semester, aware of only a vague connection between yoga and South Asian religions. I was enthralled as the texts and deities woven into my teacher training came alive in our classroom, and I soon declared religious studies as my major. In my second semester, I began an independent research project on primary yoga texts, and in my second year, with Dr. Alako's guidance, I developed a research project that focuses on religion, gender, and yoga under the larger umbrella of authority and modern yoga traditions. This project culminated in 4 stints of study and research in India during 2 summers and 2 winter terms, and intermittent fieldwork in Atlanta, Georgia. My research examines the poorest categories of religion, spirituality, and secularism in yoga contexts, and illustrates how yoga serves as a platform for discourses that both reflect and actively shape contemporary understandings of religion. I found that yoga practitioners expressed a wide range of perspectives on whether yoga is or is not religious, or has connections to Hinduism. For example, a Muslim practitioner in South India told me that yoga is universal because it incorporates no religion, while a Sikh participant explained that yoga is universal because it encompasses all religions. Others described yoga as spiritual, something distinct from institutionalized religion. A volunteer at an ashram I visited noted that just as one might travel to France for fashion, India is where you go for spirituality, demonstrating how the cultural background is the same for yoga and Indian religions. Such diverse viewpoints regarding the perceived religiousness of yoga are increasingly relevant as yoga has become a multi-billion-dollar industry and has been introduced in some schools and political programs in the United States and India. The debates regarding the entanglement of yoga and religion mutually shape modern yoga and reflect efforts to locate, define, and understand contemporary religion. As part of my first solo research trip to India last summer, I had just completed the 4 days of yoga, meditation, lectures, and discussions at an ashram. In the midst of interviewing one of the teachers, she asked me, "Why are you researching yoga? Why don't you just do the yoga and experience it for yourself?" 5 years prior, as a 16-year-old in my first yoga teacher training, my own personal experience was all that I wanted. In formulating my answer to her query, I realized that my position as an insider to these practices no longer sufficed. I have loved visiting unfamiliar spaces and speaking with people who have different viewpoints from my own. I believe that scholarship has the ability to bridge cultural differences and deconstruct harmful prejudices by conscientiously amplifying the narratives and experiences of others. That's the power of global engagement. That's the power of truly committed mentoring. And that's the power of the thing we call global, engaged learning. We all know that one. And so, as I orient myself towards a future research project in South India, I do so as an emerging scholar who is excited to be part of academic communities, to contribute to larger bodies of knowledge, and to share my work with future students throughout my career as a professor and mentor. Thank you.
Fellows and scholars have the opportunity to work in a wide range of disciplines, from religious studies, as in the case of Anya, to the sciences, social sciences, humanities, communication, education, and business. Another wonderful example of an active undergrad researcher is Alex Ball. Alex is a biochemistry major, neuroscience minor, and the president of the American Clinical Society at Elon. He will be enrolled in a microbiology doctoral program at UVA in the fall. Please give Alex a warm welcome.
Good afternoon. We've always been aware of the connection between our gut and the brain. When we get nervous because we're about to speak to a large audience, we tend to get butterflies in our stomach. One of the reasons that these butterflies exist is due to the gut-brain axis, a bidirectional communication pathway between the gut and the brain. The first time I heard of the gut-brain axis was when I was sitting in Dr. Uno's office during the fall of my sophomore year. During the course of our conversation, I became fascinated by the idea that the bacteria in our gut, the gut microbiome, can influence our behavior. Specifically, I was drawn to the emerging connection between disturbances in our gut microbiome and autism spectrum condition. What is interesting to note about autism is that 70 to 80% of all autistic individuals suffer from gastrointestinal problems linked to a decrease in diversity of the gut microbiome. Now, whether this decrease is the cause or a result of autism remains to be seen. However, recent research has demonstrated that the gut microbiome produces a variety of biochemical molecules that are needed for brain development. One of these molecules is the neurotransmitter serotonin, which is involved in neuron growth and the development of neural pathways. Although we tend to think of serotonin as a neurotransmitter, 90% of its serotonin is located in our gut, and its synthesis is regulated by the gut microbiome. So my project was interested in looking at what would happen if we decreased the diversity of the gut microbiome, and how would that impact serotonin levels in the brain. So to do this, we use a zebrafish model, which has a similar gastrointestinal tract to humans and a similar nervous system to humans. So what we did is we went out to the local pet store, get some fish antibiotics that we'd use in your local aquarium, and added it to the tank. After the treatment period had ended, we sacrificed the fish and collected the brain and the tissue. When people ask me what was my major takeaway from my research project, they're always shocked when I reply, I learned that nothing works in science. And while this may not be entirely true, it certainly felt like that over the past 2 years. Many of my experiments did not work, and I think a good example of this is at the start of my research project, I was planning to use a HPLC instrument to quantify the serotonin in the zebrafish's brain. After months of trying to get this instrument to work, I realized I was going to have to do an alternative route to quantify the serotonin. Although I wanted to throw the multi-$1,000 instrument off the roof of McMichael, I realized that was not going to solve my problem, though I think it would have made me feel a lot better. Instead, I collaborated with the chemistry department to figure out a new method to analyze serotonin. The new method used fluorescence, and although it ended up working, it took another year to get all the kinks worked out. However, at the end of my research, I was able to show that with a decrease in the diversity of the gut microbiome, you're seeing a decrease in the levels of serotonin, which is what you see in autistic individuals. Looking back at the past 2 years of my research project, I wouldn't change the failures or setbacks that I faced. Ultimately, I feel like that I grew due to these failures more than I did to the successes. When the HPLC didn't work, I had two options. I could give up and not progress in my research project, or I could continue to work and get the results that I needed. And I think that's a good theme that many of our fellows can adhere to, that we fail a lot in research, but we build up that resiliency to pick ourselves up and try it again. Thank you.
There's something about the controlled challenge that running is. When you're running for 3 or 4 hours, the quote is, "To run is to hurt." You get to these places where you're in so much pain, mentally and physically, but then you push through it. And there's times when you do not want to go out for that run, when you do not want to get up and go to school that day, and you do it anyway. And I think running is a big metaphor for life.
When I was a first year at Elon, I was still under the impression that, leadership is positional and that I needed to go out and get every leadership position that I could. So I got this position as a first year student. I was not really prepared to take on that kind of leadership role.
I fractured my back freshman year, and that injury ended up lasting my entire freshman season and sophomore season. So by that time, the head coach was basically, his advice to me was to be done with football.
When we first visited Zambia, we went to Chapulikusu and we had all these ideas that we had worked for a year on. And we went there and we were like, oh, they already have clean water. Oh, they don't need any of this. All of our ideas were kind of shot down very nicely.
I haven't actually yet come in contact with anybody who does similar research, which is somewhat disappointing. I would like to meet somebody who also is doing the research, but it's not a very big area, so people focus on ISIS as a hot topic, and I've actually, at a research conference, I had somebody say, why do you even care about Al-Qaeda? ISIS is the new big thing.
Elon's a very interesting place. It's a different place, but it might be the place you need to be. I feel as though I was led to be here, and this is a place that I needed to be in order to grow into who I'm going to become.
Football and computer science, they're not totally separate worlds. There may be people who are going to tell you you can't do this and that, but you really can't set limitations for yourself if you want to do big things with whatever you're doing.
We were able to talk to these people who are already working in the community, already have all these great ideas, and we talk to them, what does the community need? What do you think we can do for you?
People don't understand that research doesn't have to be something huge and groundbreaking, but it can just be one more piece of the conversation that you're adding. So I'm pretty proud that I was able to take this project from just an idea of combining two interests, and now I've written a journal article that I'm submitting for publication, and I presented with scholars and other professors at conferences.
I was here as a leadership fellow, and I was here tasked to bring leadership to campus and to learn as a leader and grow and create change. And I was trying to do that, but I tried too hard to do that. And I'm so happy that I was given the opportunity to grow as a leader and to have that kind of challenge so young because it really shaped my leadership for the rest of college. Leadership isn't about the amount of places that you're involved in, it's about the quality of the involvement that you have.
And you learn a lot about yourself as a leader in terms of relating with other people, making sure they're heard and meeting their needs, and it's a service role ultimately, and you learn that service is rewarding and harrowing at the same time.
I've set myself up while at Elon to challenge myself, and I've discovered that that's how I do best. So I've focused in on what I'm passionate about, and I've also discovered how to best support myself and challenge myself within those realms.
Of course, we could not have addressed these challenges and achieved what we have without the constant leadership, support, and world-class mentoring we have received from our faculty and the program directors who run the Fellows and Scholars programs. So please join us now in recognizing our directors, faculty members, and deans who continue to ensure support for these programs. Our next speaker is an Elon College Fellow who earned a prestigious Goldwater Scholarship, was inducted into Phi Beta Kappa, and is a Lumen Scholar. She is a certified scuba diver and double major in biology and environmental and ecological science, all of which led her to many experiences with marine science, including working at Duke's Marine Lab, the Marine Mammal Center in California, and a research internship in the Seychelles, as well as studying abroad, because there's many places she went, Belize and Turks and Caicos. Please join me in welcoming Mariana Kneppers.
Hello. Let me adjust this. Stress. It's something we all endure in our lives. Despite how much we hate the feeling, stress is the sensation that pushes us to meet those final deadlines we just don't have the motivation to reach. But too much can be detrimental and even have an impact on your health. Being from San Francisco, moving across the country was a pretty stressful experience for me, and double majoring in 2 sciences while working on my research definitely provided me with more than my fair share of stress. But I never could have imagined that researching plant stress would teach me so much about how to deal with my own. I joined Dr. Touché's lab the spring of my sophomore year to explore the intersect of salinity and heat stress on 3 species of salt marsh plants. Both hot and highly salty environments simulate what are called drought-like conditions, making it hard for the plant to take in water. Because of the shared effect, we figured that the plants that have grown up during the stress of high saline soils will have gotten used to these drought conditions. So when these plants are hit with heat stress from high temperatures, they'll fare better than plants that have grown up in fresh water, a low-stress environment. I got to test these predictions this past summer, splitting my time between controlled greenhouse experiments here at Elon and fieldwork in the Outer Banks. People love to give me a hard time about my research on the beach, saying it was essentially a glorified vacation. But I can promise you this was not a stress-free walk on the beach. There was plenty of sweat, some blood, and its fair share of tears. Let me explain. Plants don't use all of the light they receive for photosynthesis. Depending on how stressed a plant is, a certain amount of light will be fluoresced back. A more stressed plant fluoresces more light, and vice versa. We measure this fluorescence using a tool called a fluorometer. Based on the values given by this tool, we can measure a plant's stress by its ability to perform photosynthesis. For being such a small instrument, this tool gives us a lot of data, recording 14 parameters with each measurement taken. It also has quite the memory capacity, so I'd grown accustomed to taking measurements all day long in the greenhouse and only downloading the data at the end of the day. But in the field, I wasn't as diligent. Field days were long and tiring. You're outside under the hot sun, you're getting sunburnt, you're covered in sand and dirt, your mentor's making fun of you the entire time. So by the end of the day, you're pretty grumpy and all you want to do is go to sleep. So I kept pushing off the data downloads until the memory filled up completely, which was about halfway through our third day of data collection. At this point, I drove back to the house to download data onto the lab laptop. The download is taking a while, which is kind of concerning, but I figured since the memory was full, it probably was going to take some time. So I brought the laptop back with me in the car, getting a little anxious, but still optimistic. I didn't think I had a reason to worry quite yet. Well, when I got to the site, I saw the download had frozen at 99%, and it hadn't moved for the last 8 minutes. I was sitting in the hot car, laptop in lap, anxiously staring at this 1% gap that would determine whether I'd have to break some pretty unpleasant news to my mentor. Finally, after I don't know how long, that little yellow triangle with the exclamation point popped up onto the screen, followed by a string of letters, numbers, and symbols, the incoherency of which was more terrifying than if the message read, "Your data's ruined." Fast forward over the next 2 stress-filled days, after email chains back and forth with the support center in the Czech Republic, countless failed download attempts, followed by a couple bouts of crying, we came to the conclusion that the data file had been corrupted and was completely unsalvageable. I'd officially lost 2.5 days worth of valuable plant stress data from the hottest days of our 2-week trip, the data that was most likely to show us the heat stress we needed to find our interaction in the field. It almost felt like karma. After weeks of torturing my stressed plants in the greenhouse, it was my turn to receive the stress treatment. I now had to face my mentor and my lab mate and tell them that our hard work over the past 3 days had disappeared into technological oblivion. I was stressed, embarrassed, and racked with guilt. But stress gives us the opportunity to overcome adversity. In the face of stress, you have the option to burn up in the heat or use the resources around you to grow into a more resilient individual. And that's exactly what I found with my study. 2 of the 3 species showed that pre-acclimation to higher salinities allowed them to survive the higher temperatures. They weren't necessarily thriving, but by adapting to this initial stressor of salinity, they accumulated the adaptations needed to hold them over through the added heat stress, unlike the freshwater plants who had adapted to an environment free of an initial stressor. This thermoprotective response, I've come to realize that stressful experiences like my research mishap are essential for building up the resilience needed to take on life's challenges. If you live life trying to dodge stress, you're going to wilt in the face of life's bigger trials. Through the friendships I've made and the work I've put in, I can say that my time at Elon has definitely pre-acclimated me for the challenges ahead. At the end of the day, I wouldn't trade any of the blood, sweat, tears, and especially the stress for anything, because it's all prepared me for the next adventure post-grad. Thank you.
Elon's definitely growing, which is great. Elon changes a little bit every year, so it's a new Elon than you experienced the previous year.
President Connie book, when she came in, I got to host a live stream. It was a 30-minute interview, and they could have had someone on staff do that. But it was very special that they thought, no, we should have 2 seniors interview the newest president, and I don't think that would have happened on a lot of other campuses.
I'm very, very proud of our Periclean Scholars class, and I think we've had a lot of doubts over the years, a lot of things we're like, this is just not gonna work, this is not gonna work. And it did. And instead of just walking in and being like, this is what you need, here you go, I'm very proud of us for taking all of the feedback and working together with our community partner to make a project that they really wanted and that they really loved.
Being an African American woman is very important to my identity, and so being able to work with the Black Student Union in leadership roles during my sophomore and junior year has been really an accomplishment to me in terms of like seeing the community develop and serve as like a support system for other African American students has been something I'd say is an accomplishment.
I wanted to be great, and I wanted to be, the best leader that I can. I wanted to make our cohort proud and make the people who chose me to be a leadership fellow proud. But what really made them the most proud was seeing me grow and seeing me learn how to treat myself better, and in turn, I became a better leader.
Things that have been outside of my major, outside of my field of study, have just helped me honestly become more outgoing of a person, more comfortable in myself.
Graduating Elon's going to be so bittersweet because I've had such an incredible 4 years. The people at Elon are really what make the campus and the school so special.
With its mentored relationships, its small class sizes, its family feel, it's really taken me into the person that I am today, and this is a person that I think 4 years ago, looking forward, I wouldn't expect, but I'd be very happy to see.
I came to Elon because I thought it was a place that I could grow and I could find out more about myself and I could be better than when I came, and I can honestly say that that's true. It's been an interesting ride, for sure, but I wouldn't give up the growth that I've had in my time here at Elon, and so it's been really invaluable. When I cross that stage on May 19th at 9:15 a.m., I am going to be very satisfied with my Elon experience.
We will hear from our next student, Sarah Holdren, via an interview with President Book. Sarah is an accomplished scholar who is dedicated to working in partnership with communities. An honors fellow and Lumen scholar, she holds a double major in anthropology and public health and a minor in chemistry. Her research focuses on neonatal care in the U.S. and the role of breastfeeding in preventing disease in premature infants. She's a trained doula, was volunteer coordinator at the Open Door Clinic, was an executive director for Elon Volunteers, and interned for a public health program in Ethiopia through Harvard University. She will be conducting research as a Fulbright scholar in Finland, and then will begin an MSF Graduate Research Fellowship the following year. Please welcome President Connie, Ledoux, Book, and Sarah Holdren to the stage.
Initially coming into Elon, I knew I wanted to be pre-med, and I knew I wanted to eventually be a clinician and maybe study sort of our healthcare culture, but I didn't know what space of our healthcare culture I wanted to study. Until the beginning of my freshman year, my sister had 2 preterm infants in the NICU. And that seeing my sister sort of go through that and understanding that sometimes in healthcare environments there are patients and then there is the family of the patient who themselves become a patient really showed me that it would be an interesting environment to study and a place where there was change that needed to be made. So it was definitely an inspiration throughout my whole project.
And I know you've shared that you particularly like telling people's stories or discovery through stories. Can you tell us a little bit about how you were able to connect a discipline to stories?
Yeah, so I actually came in as an English major, still pre-med, but really loved literature and loved stories and the way that literature can kind of connect us to the human experience. And through mentors like my research mentor, Dr. Fair, Dr. Anjali Palmquist, and Dr. Mold, I eventually was led to anthropology, which really allows me to study stories. I don't know if my microphone's working.
Checking on the gut-brain axis.
So anthropology essentially allows me to study stories and real people's stories, not just fictional stories, and especially stories around health and illness really was interesting to me. And so it's been such an honor to be able to document mothers' stories from the NICU and sort of see their transition from birth to parenthood. So.
Very interesting. So I know the honors program has several exciting classes. Can you share just one of the classes that was one of your favorites?
Yeah, so the honors classes are all amazing, but I got very lucky this fall of my sophomore year to be able to take a childbirth, pregnancy, and parenthood class from my current research mentor. And who would think that sophomores in college would be passionately talking about childbirth, water births, birth stories when walking across campus, and I think we definitely turned a lot of heads. But that class was really a wonderful moment for me to connect not only my own research, but also just my passions and my peers' interests, and sort of seeing the multidisciplinary way that we as scholars can engage in a classroom. And I think that's what's so powerful about Elon classes, is that we can bring so many different backgrounds to a really diverse topic and have a wonderful conversation. So.
Sounds interesting. So I know that when you're working with a research study where if people are what you're studying or stories, then that creates a very dynamic environment and things can change. Can you tell me something that you tackled with that or surprised you in that work?
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, scheduling parents' interviews is definitely difficult, especially when they're new parents and they have a sick infant at home, and sort of working through getting parents to understand the question the same way and ensuring that they feel safe and that they are willing to be vulnerable with me is definitely a challenge. But being able to just sit down with a mother and talk about her most vulnerable time probably in the past few years of her life is really such an honor. It's amazing to think that I was able to have mothers tell me about losing their children or the hope that they had after leaving the NICU. And it's truly the biggest honor of my Elon career, and I'm so excited to be able to continue serving as an advocate for this population in the future. So.
It's very interesting, and I'll just share with the group is that we heard that you have a Fulbright next year in Finland, and then also a National Science Foundation graduate program where Sarah's going to study narrative medicine at Columbia University. So really a degree that celebrates the very things that excited you and being able to tell people stories about their birth process. And then after that, off to medical school?
Hopefully, that's the plan.
Very good, where you will specialize in?
Somewhere in maternal and child health. We'll see. I think it's too early for me to know, but I definitely still want to work with women and children in the future. So.
Very good. Congratulations,
Thank you.
Sarah.
Thank you, Dr. Brooks.
Thank you, President Book and Sarah. Before we close this formal portion of the event, let's give our classmates, fellows, and scholars from the class of 2018 another round of applause.
You didn't make the wrong decision sending your kid to Elon. That's the first thing I would say. No, you made the best decision sending them here.
I have always been interested in science, and it's because my parents are both in some area of science. You know, it was inevitable that I would end up here, so I really couldn't have done it without them.
To my family, they've been behind me through it all. They've been my absolute rock. I've had some really tough times. They've been there for me. I know they're always going to be there for me.
Thank you for standing by me when I went through hard times and good times, and for picking me back up, for telling me that I can do things that I did not believe I can do, for being completely unwavering in your support.
And to my parents and to everyone who helped me get here, my mom and dad, my incredible cohort of leadership fellows, my friends and everything, they're all a part of me finding who I am. Elon also gave me them. Elon gave me a family. Elon gave me the most incredible people that I've ever met in my life. Have a great night, Elon.
So it is my home, and it's been my home for 3.5 years. And so Elon is a family. My friends have become my family. My newsroom has become my family. and they can be proud to say that I'm an Elon alum, and I'll be proud to say I'm an Elon alum, because I wouldn't have gotten to whatever I'll be in 10 years without being an Elon alum.
We thank you all for the support you have given us through this adventure at dear old Elon.
And now, if you have the time, please feel free to join us in the atrium and around the perimeter of the Great Hall, where we can share food, drink, good conversation with some awesome people, and find out more about what we've been up to the last 4 years. Have a good evening, and long live Elon.